Yes. Very well. Okay, great. Thank you. Welcome, everyone, to the body of Adam. And who is that man? Who is that masked man in the picture?
Oh, that guy.
That guy, yeah.
That's,
You haven't seen him before?
Mel Gibson.
No. Yeah, after the resurrection, if he gets that far. This is what it's all about. And that's why we emphasize that it has to be our starting point. Because all of humanity, including the animal world, the plant world, the mineral world, all of history is involved in one thing. And it's putting back together the pieces of Adam. Now, it'd be hard enough if Adam was simply a three-dimensional being or entity. The problem is Adam is a four-dimensional entity, which makes it very difficult to put Adam back together again from our three-dimensional reality. We have no idea of it's an invisible reality that, as it were, it's a parallel universe to ours that we're oblivious to. And that's why we say, Baruch Hashem, that Hashem gave us a Torah to humanity. The Torah, properly understood, is not given only to the nation of Israel. It was given to the world. The Torah is given to the nation of Israel to be the carriers of it, the interpreters of it, the navigators of it. The Jews are the cartographers. They're the map makers of it. They are the people of the map. Without Jews learning Torah and applying Torah, there can be no Torah to the world. And we say, thank God God gave us a Torah, because the Torah tells us what to do. All this stuff about morals and ethics and doing mitzvot and good deeds, all of this is for the purpose of rebuilding Adam. And that's a very important distinction to make when one approaches Torah, Jew or non-Jew. Yes, the Judaic tradition has been the backbone of Western culture with its morals and ethics, its concept of the oneness of God. But be very careful. Never limit Torah to being a great book of instruction for civility and for morality and for ethics and philosophical, theological understanding of God and the purpose of man. This is not true. It is all of that. But we have an obligation now in our generation to peer deeper into the Torah, both Jew and non-Jew, and to know that the purpose of the 613 mitzvot is literally the redemption and resurrection of the body of Adam. It is not a metaphor. It's not a little cute coincidence that the sages tell us that there are 248 limbs or aspects to the human body and 365 sinews or ligaments. together comprising 613, which just happens to be the number of the commandments of the Torah. No, this is literal. When one does a mitzvah, one is literally resurrecting the dead. And that dead being Adam. Because the Torah says, and the divine said to Adam, on the day that you eat from it, you will surely die.
Genesis 17.
I'm sorry?
Genesis 17.
Genesis 17, chapter 117. We've got a Bible quoting Noahide here.
I can almost say it in Hebrew too, but I won't embarrass myself.
Okay. B'yom achalacha mimenu mos tamus. On the day that you eat of it, you will surely die. Is this a punitive God? No. Was this a punishment from an adult to a child? No. This is a formula describing if you're going to cause a dimensional collapse, you go down with it and you're going to have to pick everything up. That's what death is. Death is, as described in the Kabbalah, I believe it's first mentioned in the Sefer Bakir, death. What is the description of death? This is crucial to understand. Anytime a level descends, falls, collapses to another level, just even one level below it, that is its death. And this, incidentally, you see how this fractals out. Corollary to this is that if there's a wealthy man who loses a significant part of his money, but he's still not, a pauper. He's still not considered to be a poor man by other standards, but he is considered to have experienced death because he's not able to live to the level that he was accustomed to. A poor person in that sense is considered as dead, in the sense that one has fallen from one's true level to a lower level. And that's why when we make money and some money comes in, we literally feel like the revival of the dead. We feel uplifted, yes. All right. Before we continue on our journey of picking up the pieces of Adam, are there any questions or observations from last week? If you have any, please type them in. Be happy to consider them. Otherwise, let's go back to our text. Drush Eitz Hadat. Exposition and the tree of knowledge. Think about it. Everybody, any child, knows this story about Adam and Eve and the fruit of the tree of knowledge and the serpent. And it clearly is the root and the beginning of everything. And yet, who studies it in depth? Aside from philosophical, some theological, what was the nature of the sin? And yet, I'm sorry?
Torah scholars?
Well, even in Torah, unfortunately, it's a highly specialized field. And what Rabbi Shlomo Eliashiv has done here is monumental. When he wrote this, in the early part of the 20th century, he collected all the sources from the Talmud, from the Midrash, and from the Zohar, and put them all together to show us for the first time in detail what actually took place. And although it does require knowledge of the Kabbalah to follow, as I read to you, he says in the beginning, and even all that I reveal here, know that this is just a pashat of the Kabbalah. He's just developing an outline, a schemata of truly what was this whole thing all about. What was Adam? What was this tree? Okay, 1 second. The question, as each limb is connected to a mitzvah, can we consider illness in our own bodies a hint of the tikkun we are needing to do in the body of Adam? Yes. However, there are many factors that come into play, and unless one is a tzaddik or has a revelation, one cannot simply know, because one is suffering in a certain part of one's body, how this is affecting and how this is rooted in the body of Adam. To do this properly, not only does it require proficiency in the Kabbalah, which of course truly requires proficiency in Talmud, Midrash, Halacha, and Hebrew. Let's not forget Hebrew. Yes. That this is a very, very advanced field of study called Gilgulim, transmigration. And the greatest example of this, who was the sickest person in the Bible? The one that suffered the most? Job. And he is complaining to the divine master, trying to call God on it, and essentially pushing God up against the cosmic wall. And Job says, I know that I'm innocent. I know that I'm pure. Why is this happening to me? Something is not right. And it's not me. And if it's not God, then what's going on? And so, near the end of the book, when the divine breaks through and speaks to Job directly, coming out of the whirlwind, what is one of the first things that the divine, the Creator, says to Job? Eifo hayita biyasadi aretz. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Now, this is crucial. Everyone that's listening needs to memorize this verse and the Midrash and the commentary of the Urizal on this. And as a sidebar, let me emphasize there are certain things in the Kabbalah, their source is coming from the Kabbalah, but it's beyond Kabbalah. It's basic stuff we just have to know. And this applies to those of us who do not consider ourselves mystical. There are those of us that are very happy with a rational, philosophical, concrete, down-to-earth understanding of things, and we feel uncomfortable with something that feels mystical, or we kind of lose our bearings, or it just sounds too complicated or too far out there. There are certain things, however, just like the right brain individual, the so-called otherworldly mystical person, from a Torah perspective, both Jews and non-Jews, has to learn the basics, even if it's not your preferred cup of tea. On the other hand, those that prefer the strict rationalistic approach, the classic example being Moses Maimonides, the Rambam, and all of those that follow after him, well, there's also an obligation to understand certain things from a right brain perspective. And truly, Torah is a unification of both modes. Up until relatively recently, the majority of rabbis throughout history were both lawyers and mystics. There was no separation. You did not have on the campus the side that was the science and technology, and then the humanities on the other side.
So what does that have to do with the question?
Which question?
About the sick body?
Oh, about the sick body. That question.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm just trying to emphasize that there are certain things that although I am quoting them from Kabbalistic sources, they are just fundamental. And my experience of teaching for 35 years has taught me there are certain things that are just axiomatic, and whether they're coming from the Peshat or the Sod, you just have to know them. And the way of knowing something is to know if it's a verse, look up the verse. Memorize the verse. Know what the sages tell us about it, and then integrate that into your worldview, into your cosmology, and it becomes a foundation principle. This is how I've developed my whole understanding of Torah, my Torah cosmology. Okay, so here's the case in point. The case in point being this verse. The Midrash says, now this is the Midrash. This is even before the Arizal comments on it. It says, when the divine is saying to Eov, asking the rhetorical question, where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? It's a code language. And the Midrash actually says, what is the foundation of the earth? That's the body of Adam. And where are you? It's a play on the word, because the word epho in Hebrew means where. The word ephah is a measurement, a biblical measurement. And so the Midrash says, Al tikre epho ele ephah. Don't read it. Don't read the verse. Don't understand the verse as saying only where are you, where were you, but where, in what measurement in the body of Adam. And then the Arizal comes in the opening of Sefer Gilgulim, the book of the transmigrations of souls. He says, he quotes this Midrash, which is commenting on the verse in Job, saying, this is nothing less than Gilgul. This is transmigration, meaning every one of us is rooted in a part in the body of Adam, plain and simple. When we are afflicted, as Job was afflicted, to know the root of our affliction is, yes, this is the Torah attitude, that I'm going through this because this is where I am rooted in the body of Adam. This is what Adam's body is going through. And if I want to understand truly my life, my purpose, my mission, and why things happen to me, and why bad things happen to good people like me and others, it has to do with where you're rooted in the body of Adam. Plain and simple. Obviously, this is just the heading. But what a radical different approach than trying to philosophize and theosophize why there's evil in the world and why bad things happen to good people. And coming up with creating an impotent God or a diabolical force in the world that has separate powers from God, or God simply just can't get it together. This is then in the answer to the question is, as each limb is connected to a mitzvah, can we consider illness in our own bodies a hint of the tikkun we are needing to do in the body of Adam? Yes. However, it does require, obviously, a lot of study. One has to be a tzaddik, or you go to a tzaddik who then can tell you where you are in the body of Adam. If you have enough of the parameters and you know yourself, which often doesn't happen until you're in your 40, 50, 60, 70s, you can then look back in pulling together intuition with Yirat Hashem, fear of God and awesomeness, enough foundations in Torah, and you have to know the biblical characters. You got to know who's who, because all the biblical characters, those are the limbs and the arteries and the veins and the guts of the body of Adam. Then you can begin to see why we go through what we go through. And it is really, truly a wonderful relief to know, oh, that part of Adam's body, that's why I'm going through this. And why I keep going through it. It's just fractaling. And how come I can't change this? Because until I recognize where it's coming from, the change won't happen. Because look at, Job goes through, he's already gone through 4 of his friends, every possible philosophical, religious, theological possibility, explanation of why this evil has befallen Job, and only and no answer yet. Where's the answer? The body of Adam. There it is. And let me emphasize, Job is one of the Noahide heroes. He's one of the hidden heroes. Job is, by most accounts, was not Jewish. And his message, the sages tell us, is coming primarily for the nations of the world. Job is one of the great heroes of the Noahide movement, who should be studied, and he should become a source of inspiration and instruction. And everything Job was involved with was all according to the Kabbalah as well. The book of Job is also a Kabbalistic treatise. All the books of the Torah are. Okay. We're quick review. Let's pull up another chart here for you. Let's see. Just remind you of this chart. Okay, just to know that when we talk about Adam and the levels of the soul, the model is holographic. Each level contains all 5 levels. And Adam is a spectrum, just as we are, but we're a truncated spectrum. Adam is the full range of the spectrum of these 5 layers, dimensions of the soul. For all of humanity today only has a nefesh and a ruach, and if one really works on it and evolves and develops oneself, you begin to get a neshama, but just a nefesh of the neshama. If someone who's got a ruach of a neshama already, that's a highly evolved person. That's a tzaddik. Okay, let's pull up another one here. And here's the other chart that we showed you. Friday afternoon in the garden. This is important. to know what the state of reality was in Friday afternoon. And we should also mention and be aware that where are we now in time? Friday afternoon. Micro, macro. The year 5000 that we're in now, 5,760 odd years, this is corresponding to Friday afternoon. And all the events that are taking place in the world today are actually fractaling. They are replicating the events that took place in the garden. This is part of the meaning of Ein Kol Chadash Tachat HaShemesh. King Solomon said in Ecclesiastes, there's nothing new under the sun. That's not a kind of, pessimistic, despondent statement. It's rather telling us everything that's happening is replicating that which was before. And here, this is what we described. Adam was in the... Adam was everywhere. You see, Adam was consciousness and reality. And this is kind of like a slide we're taking. If you were to look at any part of the garden, it would look like this. Bigger. These are the tree rings, is what you're looking at. Yeah, these are the cells of the trees of the Garden of Eden. These are the cells in the body of Adam. These are the cells in Adam's consciousness. There was no part of the garden that did not look like this. Say, this is just a little glimpse of something we can't glimpse, because this was a four-dimensional reality. It moved in four directions. We move only in three directions here. And there was the garden itself, and then there was the skin of the garden, like the fruit. And then you have the, we call it the pulp, let's say if we're using an orange. And then there's a space, and that was the white space. There's my laser pointer here. Oh, there it is. Oh, that's big. Okay, there we go. How can we make this a little smaller? There's some way to make it smaller. There we go. That's still big. Anyway, this white area here was a moat. That was 10 units, as it were, big, and you see it exists everywhere. And surrounding that was a klipa. Everything had a klipa around it. And this was no man's land. And now there was, remember, Adam's in the dynamic process. Everything is going up, everything is going up, everything is rising. If Adam would have waited, there was a natural progression, and because of the holiness of Shabbat that was coming in, and doing the mitzvot that he was commanded to do, there were sparks of divinity that were embedded, encased in the klipa, that was a remnant left over from the primordial worlds, and that they were coming from this gray area, passing through the moat into the skin of the Garden of Eden, and then into the skin. Everything. And what would happen after all of the life force was taken out of all the gray areas here? All the klipa would disappear, because there would be nothing to sustain it.
It would automatically ascend?
It would it would be just be turned, like, as it were, inside out. If you if you have a monster made out of a giant balloon, and it's all inflated, and you don't know it's a balloon, it looks really real. But what happens when you take out all the air? You see, all it was a klipa, a shell, a film, a membrane. And it's using the life force, in this case being represented by the air, the breath, to animate itself. You take that away, and we see, in fact, there was never any evil ever. And this is what is alluded to in the prophet when he says, Bilah hamavet lenetzach. He will, it's usually translated, he will destroy evil forever, but the word there is bilah, which means he will swallow up. In the sense of, when you turn it outside in, its essence is being swallowed up back into its source, and then it's gone. And let's see, I got one more to show you.
Well, and that would be Einod.
Einod, because, in truth, Einod milvado, there is nothing else here other than the Absolute itself. And why is the Ein Sof doing this? Why is the Ein Sof hiding itself from itself? That's a profound mystery that's known as the secret of the Sha'ashua. The Sha'ashua is the divine delight. Okay, and here's our other chart that we began to introduce to you last time. Now, I don't know if you can appreciate, this is simply a linear diagram of the circular diagram that we just showed you. You see, this is the garden proper. This layer here represents the skin of the garden. This area here this is the moat. This area here. This was like just empty. And this gray area down here, this was the area of the klipa, of the shells. And so you see how it was separated by 10 cosmic units? Now, if Adam would have not eaten from the tree of knowledge, then any of the sparks that were down here would have gradually come up on their own into the periphery of the garden and then into the core of the garden. And that would have been the whole purpose, the conclusion of creation. And one of our problems that we're trying to solve, we're detectives at the scene of a crime, a cosmic crime, the greatest catastrophe crime that's ever been committed. We're trying to understand, how could this happen? How could this evil that was down here get up here? Because it's being separated by a moat.
What's the moat?
The moat is just a vacated space, as it were. It was a vacuumless area where it was the fence that was keeping all the evil out.
Was it like a membrane? I mean, what was it?
The Noachites.
Where are they?
Was it?
Where the moat?
That's interesting. I never thought of that.
Currently.
That's interesting.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, we'll have to look into that and consider that. Okay, so this is the problem. The problem is, how could Adam have sinned? Because you see from this diagram, see what this represents here? This is called the world of Atzilut, pure emanation, pure divinity. Adam was pure divinity. From our perspective now, Adam was God. Adam was on a higher level than what's known as Metatron. Metatron is the meta-archangel. That is God's personal servant. That's the program and the programmer that carries everything out. It's called Metatron. Adam was higher than that. Question. Problem. How could Adam have sinned? Second, how could this evil get into the garden? The evil was not created. There was no evil in the garden. The tree of knowledge of good and evil was not evil. And guess what? The serpent was not evil.
Well, the tree of knowledge was a part of the tree of life.
Yes, it was an extension. There was really only one tree in the garden. The root was called the tree of life, and where it began to branch was called the tree of knowledge of Tov Ra, which does not mean good and evil. It means duality. It wasn't evil yet, not in the form that it was. This is part of the whole problem. How can we be here? Right? How could all of this happen? It was an impossibility. Okay? So, in order to understand this, and what you have here on the right, this is where we are now. That this is the Adam before the fall. This is the Adam that we are now. And you'll notice that in the strata, the area that is the pure klipa, the pure waste material, the pure contamination, you go across, that's where we are embedded in. We now, every human being in all reality, space and time, occupies this whole structure. Whereas before the fall, we only occupied this part of it. And this is what's known as the four worlds. This is Atzilut, emanation, Bria, creation, Yetzira, formation, Asiya, animation. Well, guess what? These three lower worlds, they didn't exist yet at the time of Adam.
But they were inside of Adam.
They were inside of Adam, exactly.
In a different
They existed inside of Adam.
level.
They were turned from outside in. What Adam caused was these parts of himself to literally prolapse, fall out, and part of them went here, part of them went here, here, and here. And we see from this that all reality is literally embedded within dark matter. And I'm using that term specifically because one of the great mysteries of modern physics is something called dark matter. And in short, what is this? This is that as big as the universe is, and there's something like 100 billion galaxies, in each galaxy's got 100 billion stars in it. That's pretty big. It's a lot of mass. The problem is the universe is so much more bigger that most of the universe is made out of empty space. And according to the laws of gravity, there's not enough mass in the universe to be holding it together. The whole thing should just be flying apart. And so they have theorized, and the big thing now is trying to find the proof of it. It's been a theory, and it's pretty much mainstream physics. This is accepted, that anywhere from 70, 80 to 90% of the universe, we don't even see it. Why not? Because it's dark. Meaning dark, it doesn't emanate any light. There's nothing there. I mean, this is stuff out of science fiction, but this is for real. Meaning that it has mass. It's just invisible mass. And that then explains how the universe is holding itself together. It's not antimatter, but you can use that as an analogy. It is matter. It's real matter, because it's there holding the universe together. From a Torah perspective, what is this dark matter that makes up 90% of reality? And don't think, it's way out there. Whatever's out there is here. we're embedded in it too. The whole universe is embedded in dark matter. It's death. Exactly. The day that you eat from it, you will surely die. If you eat, you're going to die, which means
splash into the dark matter.
Yes, that's meaning that if you cause everything to collapse, you're going to have to go down and pick it all up because it's all inside of this gunk. This is the root of all evil. This is the root of all death, suffering, disease. And this is the reason the world looks the way it looks and feels the way it feels, because there is sparks of pure divinity that are embedded, trapped in a cosmic tar pit. And that's being nice.
If you can't see it, how can you resurrect it?
Well, we're not resurrecting the dark matter.
But
yeah, that goes back to what we said originally, because if we didn't have Torah, there's no way we can know what is anything. Because everything is embedded, the higher dimensions collapse into lower dimensions. There is absolutely no way of knowing anything. You cannot know truth without Torah. It doesn't makes no difference how enlightened you are. It doesn't make any difference what a tzaddik you may be, what a saint you may be in the world. You cannot know unless the higher dimension itself tells you what is what. And that higher dimensionality is the map. If you don't have a map, it's all going to be speculation and guesswork. It'll contain elements of truth, but it will not be coherent. Okay. V'ha'inyan da'achilat eitz ha'da'at asher hizera kodesh baruch hu la'adam harishon. The matter concerning the eating from the tree of knowledge that the Holy One warned Adam. And remember, Adam is Adam and Chava. Hinei hu kolel gimel devarim. It contains 3 matters. Now, what I'm going to share with you now is absolutely revelatory. This will change your entire perception of anything you ever thought about the tree of knowledge and the fruit and the eating. There are 3 aspects to the eating of the tree of knowledge. There is the literal eating. Because there was some aspect. Remember, their eating was not like our eating, and the tree wasn't like a physical tree. It's a tree-like structure. It's a multidimensional structure. But there was literal eating. It was literal eating on that level. Secondly, the prohibition, the act of eating had a second layer to it. And this was the Isur HaZivug. Okay, I'm sorry. I think I accidentally hit the button there. Can you hear me now? Yeah, okay. Boy, and I just divulged the deepest secrets.
Too bad.
And too bad you missed it. Okay. The first aspect of eating was the actual physical eating. The second layer was the conjugal relations between Adam and Chava. When the divine said, "Don't eat from it," who's the it? It includes Chava. Don't eat from her, meaning do not have relations with her, because she's in a state of contamination, from the radioactivity. And because remember, reality is holographic. That means that if you stimulate the radioactivity that is associated with Chava, you'll be stimulating it throughout the entire world. And therefore, Chava is literally the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Because the zivug, the union, is called by the Torah by the word da'at, as in carnal knowledge or biblical knowing. As it says, V'ha'adam yada et Chava ishto. And Adam knew Chava, his wife. The word know there is a kinui. A kinui is a nickname, a changed word, a code word for zivug. Zivug meaning a intimate relationship. Mashum she'ikr tipa lezivug v'nimshach mimoach hadat shehu hamitpashe b'kol haguf derech chut hashidra. And this is because, why is union called by the term da'at? Okay, you have Chachma, Bina, and da'at. Right brain, left brain, middle brain. Because it is basic, not just Kabbalistic Torah knowledge, but basic Torah knowledge, that the essence of the male seed comes from the da'at, the middle brain structure. It's the essence. Of course, the physical seed is manufactured below, but the soul of the seed is produced in the da'at, in the middle brain. Therefore, sexual union is referred to in the Torah, in Scripture, and by the sages as the word da'at, because that's where the essence of it is coming from. And it is drawn from the moach hada'at, from the middle brain, shehu hamitpashet b'kol haguf, and then from the middle brain it extends throughout the entire body via the chut hashidra, the spinal cord. Umizeh hu kol hana'at hazivug mehagilui de'or hamochin ba'aguf. And it is this very structure and process that produces all of the sexual pleasure that a human being experiences. It is the traveling of the light from the da'at via the chut hashidra, the spinal column, and the whole nervous system. That is the hasadim that is running through the conduits of the gevurot, like water that is rushing through the constriction of a hose. And this is what is revealing the light of the mochin, of the brains of consciousness. That is what all that pleasure is, and unfortunately no one ever taught us this, that really is pure consciousness, divinity, that is going from the higher level being channeled through the lower level, and that is what the body is experiencing. V'nikra hazivu b'lashon achila. And furthermore, we know that the act of union is also called eating. And we see this, for example, when the sages tell us in the Midrash Rabbah, on a verse, Ki im halechem asher hu ochel, the bread which he eats. There we know that eating is lashon naki, nakiya. It is called clean language. Whenever the Torah is using the term eating, in many cases, it's a code language referring to union. V'haya hatzivui shelo yizdaveg ima kodem Shabbat. The commandment not to eat from the tree of knowledge was once again physical eating, and it was sexual eating, and the prohibition was what? Do not have relations before Shabbat. The time for relations is when? Friday night. And this is the source. It's well known in ancient Jewish tradition. The most opportune time for man and woman to come together is Friday night, Shabbat night. In this case, and this is important to appreciate, the prohibition of eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil was not an eternal prohibition. It was a temporary prohibition. This is a very radical concept, but only to a mind that's not mature enough or not initiated, because all the prohibitions that we have today in the world from Torah, they are not eternal. They are only temporary.
So we can go out and kill somebody someday?
Well, you could say, let's say yes, except you won't be you, and you're not going to have physical bodies. This is alluded to also.
Good luck.
This is alluded to in a esoteric concept that says, why is chazir called chazir? Chazir is a pig, and it has the same Hebrew root as the word for to return. Chozer, chazara, chazir. Because in the future, the pig is going to return to its original higher level of holiness. It will, in other words, from a kashrut perspective, it will no longer be prohibited. Except, we're not going to be in the material world. In this case, you will not be able to have your pig, and eat it too. Because you won't be separate from the pig anymore, because everything's going back into its higher state. And so the prohibition was, Adam, you just have to wait until Shabbat. And in fact, the whole eating from the tree of knowledge, it was only temporarily. It was only a couple of hours. He could not wait a couple of hours.
A cosmic hour.
And if he would have waited until sundown, when Shabbat came in, then not only would it have been permitted for Adam to eat and to have union with Chava, but it would have been a mitzvah. He would have been the very opposite. He would have been commanded to eat from the tree of knowledge and to have this relationship with Chava, because that was the tikkun. Because when he did that, together with the holiness of Shabbat, and remember, everything is dynamic. It's all moving. Everything is going up, going up, going up. This picture on the right here, this wasn't the end of it. He was going to go up even higher. You see the legs sticking out here? These legs, which is also the part of Chava that was descending into the world below it, this would have ascended into Atzilut, pure divinity. Nothing would have been, even this periphery would not be the periphery anymore. And then he would have been commanded to eat from the tree. And this is still going to happen.
What's the third thing? Did we talk about that?
Not yet. Gimel. The third aspect of eating is mental eating, conceptual eating. Because this is also called eating throughout Scripture, as in the book of Ezekiel, Echol et ha-megillah hazot. There, the Creator commands Ezekiel the prophet, says, here, take this scroll and eat it. It doesn't mean there literally eat it. It means unite with it on a conceptual level. That's called, knowing something intellectually is called eating. Knowing something sexually is called eating. Eating something physical is called eating. And also we have another verse in Isaiah where the term eating is used to refer to intellectual eating. And we see Nimshalu Divrei Torah b'mayim b'yayin b'shemen b'davash. We see that the words of Torah in the Midrash are compared to water in some cases, to wine in other cases, to oil, and to honey. And therefore, the Leshem tells us that introspection, conceptualization, and knowing something is also contained in the term of eating. And therefore, when Adam was told, don't eat from it, it meant the warning also, do not think, do not contemplate, do not investigate with your mind anything that has an aura, a field of contamination surrounding it. Not the fruit of the tree, not the woman of the tree, and not the thought of the tree. וכדי שלא ימשך להסתכל בכוחות החיצוניים עצמם לחקור לדעת בכוחותיהם עד כמה שמגיע כדי שלא יתפתה אחריהם. Now remember, this is not a prohibition against eating evil. The woman is not evil. That's a Christian concept that came out of gross misunderstanding of this. The woman is not evil here, and the thought is not evil either. It's rather because there's still an aura that's hanging around, as it said, the Ruach Elokim mirachefet al panei tahom. Remember in the beginning, the land was desolate, and the Ruach of the God was hovering over it. That's a graveyard. That's the soul hovering over the grave. There was a death process that had taken place, and there was residue of this radioactive type of spiritual contamination that was surrounding the tree until Shabbat would come in, surrounding the essence of feminine energy, aka Chava, which is Adam's own feminine self, and it was surrounding the very conceptualization of the essence of what this radioactivity was. Don't experiment. Don't look into it. Don't investigate it. Not because the investigation is wrong in and of itself, but the stakes are very high. What if you make a little wrong move? What if you make a little mistake? We need the background music. Yeah. Because, and in this case here, and we will conclude that because it is the nature of a human being that anything you think about, that's where you are. Not only you are what you eat, but guess what? You are what you think. On a well-known thing that's known in philosophy as well, the Rambam talks about it. It's known in classical Greek philosophy as well. The mind, the one who is the thought, the one who's thinking, and the act of thinking are all one and the same. You cannot separate them. לכן הוא סכנה גדולה נורא מאוד מאוד להסתכל לסבונן בכל מה שיש לרע אחיזה בו. Therefore it is a great danger, an awesome, extremely great danger to investigate why bad things happen to good people, even if you're Adam. Because if you investigate the evil, where you put your mind is where you're going to be. And we're going to see this is the beginning of resolving the question, how did the evil get into the garden? There was a moat, a cosmic moat that was 1 billion light years, as it were, wide. Nothing could get across. The evil could not get in, aside from the fact that Adam was on such a higher level and evil can't even coexist on that high level. How did it get in? Well, we're already beginning to see. Because Adam went a-looking. He simply put his thought on it, and he created a mind bridge. And the cosmic radiation was activated by Adam's mind, and it traveled through his thought into the garden. I assume many of you have seen the movie Alien. And if you haven't, don't. But if you have, for Alien 1, there is one scene in there that is really worth it. And if you haven't seen it, you do need to see this one scene to get a glimpse of what happened with Adam. Remember when the astronaut is investigating this spaceship that had crashed 1 million years before on some desolate planet, and the whole thing's frozen, petrified, and they go down into the hull of the ship, and there are these large egg-like structures, pods, and as he gets near, and they've been sitting there for 1 million years dormant. They can't do anything at all. And one of the astronauts representing a fractal of Adam, the curiosity, the scientist in all of us, he wants, what's going on there? He gets a little close there, and he triggers a field, and the thing opens up. He still can't see what's inside, though, but something opened up. And he bends over to look inside. Adam took a look at the essence of evil. And what happened next? That is our lesson for the evening. We will conclude here. And if you do want to be prepared and do a little homework, if you haven't seen the movie, rent it. You would only probably have to watch the first 20 or 30 minutes to see that part of it. And if you haven't, and don't watch it alone. Don't watch it after you just had a meal either. And and if you haven't seen it in a long time, it's definitely worth seeing again. It's one of the holy sparks of Hollywood. That is a very powerful graphic that brings home the message here. Are there any questions? All right. All right, folks. We will see you next week. Thank you for joining us. And Laila Tov.